blooms in New England. Ron has worked for decades to raise awareness about our local area, addressing unsustainable development, sewer wastewater issues, dredging, and legacy waste from places like GAC Chemical and Holtercab. His organization promotes species restoration and government and public outreach. They collect aerial and underwater data and work with communities to mitigate problems. Friends of Penobscot Bay was instrumental in sending the proposed liquefied propane gas project back to their corporate boardrooms. The list is quite long and impressive, and I'm sure Ron will tell you more about his journey. So please join me in welcoming Ron Heber.
This should be just about fine. All right, well, thank you, Jillian, and thank you, Jim Grossman, for getting the auction organized. It will be fun to get an antique mallard decoy from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm not sure if it was one they confiscated from somebody or simply collected over time. It seems that like little shotgun pellicles in it. But anyway, the Friends of Penobscot Bay Citizens Association were dedicated to stewarding this bay, and the important things that haven't been getting done that we decided needed to get done was looking at this as a seafood problem. Is there what's going on that can harm the lobsters, that can keep it more difficult to bring back the codfish and the other things that have gone away? What's going to bring back the sturgeon? This bay should be, this harbor should be hopping.
And the salmon.
So we began looking for that and the salmon. Now, there's a bit of temperature limitation that may not bring them back here. But one more certificate of appreciation, gave him one already for just doing anything at all. And the important thing, though, is not whether they feel good, it's that whether the fish and things start feeling good. If the water no longer has that tear gassy feel to it, to a fish by having a high acidity content, then perhaps we will finally get back this area, which, as I said, it's a really important estuary. That's the brackish water area for the bay. It's probably the most important. And so another part of doing that is there are 35 licensed outfalls towing the bay, and mostly there's sewage treatment plants, but there's also some companies that do it. And well, they try, but they're often out of compliance. Rockland, Bryland, they've been out of compliance with the sewage treatment plant for about 3 years. Supposedly it should be paying immense fines, but immense to me, within the tens of thousands, but they haven't. And so the challenge is under the current administration, they're very lax in letting companies that are breaking the law just do it better next time. And I don't know how many times you tell them someone's breaking the law, stop that, without doing anything about it before they just shut you on. But that's sort of what's been happening with this administration. It's almost impossible to get them to take a look at the GAC site. The one what they did there, they said, we're not going to take any samples, and we're not going to go look over those other areas, and we're just going to take one walkthrough. And there was a couple of rocks with a bit of rockweed on it. They said, look, biodiversity, we're good. And that was the end. And so I said it ended up with us just pestering the company itself until they finally thought, well, it's better to just save face, clean the mess up, and keep the promises that they had. So that's one of the things of healing these old injuries to the bay. And at the same time, something new that's coming up, the federal government has decided that the waters from the low tide line to about 20 meters deep are all around the entire Gulf of Maine coast of the U.S. are going to be designated, I guess, by January of next year as habitat area of particular concern, HAPC, for juvenile Atlantic cod. They really think that because baby cod, when they're fresh hatchlings, they go to the shallows because it's the safe place to be. The worst predators, in fact, of juvenile cod are teenage cod and adult cod. They do all the tricks, and they have no problem with cannibals. So what the feds have found is that if you have enough three-dimensional habitat there, rockweed, kelps, seaweeds, intertidal too, at high tide, it's another shallow, safe place. Sort of think of them as wanting safe spaces. That's what baby cod want. And big ones don't want to come in because an osprey can see them. So the way to do this is, you may have seen an underwater camera that's over by the door there. We've been towing along the midpoint of that depth zone. It's basically the blue line. If you look at a navigation chart, the outer end of the shoal, that's about averaging about 30 feet deep. And so we've been doing it in Rockport and Rockland, and we want to do that up here as well, because the point of this being that typically you'll find that things are a lot more lively up there than you thought. And it's not just mud with a couple of brimstones. And then when a developer comes, and believe me, the Route 1 corridor has no problem with attracting would-be developers. When they come, one of the things we want to do is to go up and speak to the bay and say, look, if you're going to build on this shoreline, then realize right below it is so many lobster holes, it looks like a prairie dog town. You are not going to poison them out by having a big driveway here with flood runoff. And without doing the other video stuff, you're not going to know that. Many of you have been to planning board meetings, about a development project, and they'll say, all right, what about, looking at their checklist, what about fishery impacts? They go, well, anybody? No? Okay, check. Must be cool. And we want to put an end to that, because this bay can really be super abundant. As you may know, this was the upper bay was a big scalloping area for a long time, too. And of course, as someone said, the sturgeon and the stripers and so many others. So what we found is that getting relatively inexpensive gear is enough for what's called sentinel stuff. That is, if we can find it, that a pH looks horribly out of whack, a $30 pond and not the $3,000 one that the professionals use, it's still going, look, there's smoke. Would you, DEP, go check and see if there's fire. And so we're distributing them around the bay as many people as we can to do this basic form of citizen science. Get to know the shallow water habitats you have there, and then get to know as much about the water quality as you can, so that when indeed a developer comes or say your local sewer company gets time to re-up their license, you'll be able to help your town, your community make an informed decision, because sometimes it feels like in Rockland, some of the patients people have would work just fine if there was no bay there at all. And I sort of said, well, we'll go back to New Jersey if you want that here. And, one of the big power plants and a lot of other things. So really this, although here we're kind of away from the west side of the bay, just slightly. The whole Route 1 corridor is really, really at risk there. And as many of you probably know, the Outer Bay is the richest lobster ground in all of New England. So what we do here is going to have an impact down there. So the more things get cleaned up, the more the reactions to having the dams taken down and so on, the better it can be here. But the challenge is doing things at these choke points. And as I said, this is arguably one of the most important ones here in Stockton Harbor. And let me just give you a quick list of some of the things that have come out. Many of you will know about all of these, but just going back to 1993 when I first came up here, from Chesapeake Bay, by the way, which I think is that unlike lobsters waiting decades for them to get big enough to catch, a one-year-old crab is where they go. But anyway, as you may remember, back in 1993-94, it was Defense Fuels, the B-52 fuel was here. And when that came up for review, as these things must, I went and asked them, well, how much of this is going into the sand there? And how much, from all these years of having the ships do this stuff? They didn't want to check, We just threw chapter and verse at them, so they came to check. And it turns out that things were okay. But the important thing is to go ahead and get these agencies, these public servants, to actually serve the public like that. They don't mind as long as you're straightforward about it. And then it came to 1993 to 96, Angus King, Sears Island Cargo Port. I'm sure many of you were here during the whole brouhaha there. And one of the most important things I feel that I did was the National Marine Fisheries Service and the Fish and Wildlife Service were reviewing the project. They decided there were serious impacts, especially the National Marine Fisheries Service, digging up a shoal and taking out a lot of eelgrass and things. So, the governor decided, well, let's see if I can do some political pressure. And they got Region 1's EPA guy to transfer the permit reviewer that was reviewing this permit away, making some bogus claims of inadequate work or something, in the hopes that to get someone more pliant than just rubber stamp report and stuff. And so I happily knew an organization called PEER, Public Employees for Environmental Responsibility. Contacted them, they talked to her. Before we knew it, John DeVillers, the EPA guy, had a court case in front of him in Boston. And PEER went up to him and said, look, we'll drop it if you just put her back in. Well, let's just pretend none of this happened. And he blinked, put her back in. They withdrew the case. Angus King couldn't get the mitigation dropped down below what was necessary, and so he ended up withdrawing. So sometimes, even when the agencies want to be good, the bad guys can monkey around with them, and it really takes citizens that are keeping a tight watch on it to make sure that things are being done safely and adequately like that. Another one I thought was most interesting, just skipping down, was Duck Trap Mountain. If anyone remembers MB&A, the credit card company, and they made some very, very fine buildings in a number of towns. But one of the challenges was Duck Trap Mountain, after making its mountaintop business there, they began building summer cottages down the slope. slopes. And as they're doing it, they're clearing out these deer yards, which are important to the coastal deer herd to get out of the wind. And so took them to the Board of Environmental Protection, and well, they had to, the board said they had to stop, no more of those things. So at least it was brought to a halt. And Sean, what's his name there, being his VP, wasn't very happy about that. However, we thought it was very good for the deer. Another one I thought was really amazing is there was a proposal for a marina next to the Rockland Breakwater. And to many people, it makes sense. There's the salmon set, just what they need. And however, that's a very important lobster area right in there, those shallows, and those areas along there. So, and it's also one of the few places in Rockland you can come down to the water, have the big silence. Way over there is Vinyl, way over there is Vinyl Haven. There's Owl's Head. It's just big quiet. And so we were able to convince DEP to turn this thing down. Well, it took two go-rounds, one in 2000, one in 2006. And the first time they just withdrew the application. And the second time, Baldacci's brother was representing Pierce Atwood there. And they thought, oh, we got the fix. But they didn't. The amazing thing was, Maine DEP found that because it would harm the scenic view from this little park, Marie Reed Park, that's at the base of the thing, that it was out. They had to find some other way of doing this. Now, the amazing thing to me was that that park was actually property of Samoset, and they had just had it loaned to the town. And so they were sort of stopped by their own scenic vista. And actually, things are much better for it. And a few other things is, Dragon products, if any of you remember the Dragon cement down on Route 1. Well, if you've been here a while, you may remember the things in Thomaston and southern Rockland getting coated with cement killing dust all the time. Well, finally, first one fellow decided to take action. He got others going. I ended up somehow being president of Neighbors for a Safe Dragon. And over time, over failed Board of Environmental Protection efforts and things like that, finally they went ahead and thought, well, let's just go ahead and cap it. And they finally did cap it. So, but it took years and years. And that's one of the challenges for people like ourselves. Can you really spend years and years on one issue, a single issue thing? A lot of us have to move on. We have to move things. That's why the Friends of Penobscot Bay is important. Been a member of a lot of groups, but actually, or associate, but members of none of them. And there's an awful lot of organizations, a fair number around our bay here, they care about things. And a lot of individuals that do. And whether it's a fisherman or an activist or retired person, they can often be the one that will have the solution that we can then take to the agencies and get dealt with. And so it's very important to keep in mind that any volunteer, anybody can be a volunteer. It can make a huge difference, whether you can volunteer as an accountant or as a scuba diver, or you have a boat time. That's a hugely important thing. One of the differences from other waterkeepers we're trying here, because we've become a waterkeeper affiliate, the national organization, is to have it more decentralized. Instead of ourselves getting a boat and then having this hole of water to keep paying, and then having to get more and more money to sustain things, why not the people that fish and sail and motor on this bay? They come in, they can do some of the citizen science stuff, tow our video cameras, tow a plankton camera, a plankton net, and any of those things, that can collect the information that we need. Without that, without those
space.
Do you want me to
So
turn
can
it off?
mosey on
Do you want
into
me to
that
turn it off?
auction room
You
right
turn
over
it off.
there and take